Hi, this is Dennis with Second Chance Tackle, and we're going to pick up where we left off on why do reels commonly fail and what you can do about them. And this has been our poster child here. It's an interesting reel. It's a Penn 259. It's the Long Beach Live Bait Caster. It's a very unusual reel in that there weren't that many of them made. They tend to be collectible. This one is junk. But it's a good place to kind of show you why reels fail. And in the Penn Reels in particular, there's a huge problem with the metal parts. If you do not maintain this, if you do not wash the reel off on a regular basis, if you don't use preventive maintenance like a WD-40, or if you just simply have left this in the bow of the boat, or in the back of the shed, or it got swamped or something. We don't even know what happened here, but I am committed that this reel will make it back, and I show you some of the tricks as to why I'm committed to that. So let's go from the easiest to maybe the hardest, from the prettiest to the I can make this work range of things in terms of how do you fix a reel that's got all of this heavy corrosion on it, right? So the first answer is you go buy new metal parts, right? So metal parts are new. You can get them from pennparts.com if you know the parts. And even though this is a rare reel, they share parts with the Penn Jigmaster. Everything except the take apart side here and the gear ratio inside this reel is pretty much identical to the Penn Jigmaster. So go buy the cross posts, go buy the trim rings, go get a new handle while you're at it, get the drag, star drag. Better buy screws because these will probably all snap when we eventually go to take these off. And pull out the old ones, put in the new ones. It'll look pretty nice, right? And of course you're going to get rid of all of this line, and this one happens to be a plastic spool, which you might want to go upgrade that if you wanted to, in terms of use the Jigmaster anodized spool, or just clean that one up and put it back. So let's just play a game here to say this is your favorite reel when you were growing up 35 years ago, and you want to put it on the shelf and you want to make it look pretty. That's option number one. Go do that. So what's option number two? Buy used. Okay, and buy used says there's a lot of reels out there that have been broken for whatever reason. You now know that this happens to have the Penn Jigmaster parts. You know that because there's part numbers on a lot of these, even though it's hard to tell here. That'll be a 250 bridge, and this will be a Penn 65 handle, and so on. And now that you know the secrets to that, go buy used. So what happens, right? So here's an example of what happens. Here's a Penn Jigmaster frame, right? And I know what happened here because one of my customers brought it in and said I could have the frame, and I said, well, where's the rest of it? It went overboard, right? It went overboard because one of the failing points here is that the nut, in this case the connector nut on the side plate, vanished. That reel worked itself free, and this is one of those side plates that just is a twist and a turn to get into it, and it's real easy to work its way out, fall overboard, and all you have left is the frame. So you can actually disassemble this because they're not exactly alike. This one has the cup for the screw and side plate. This one does not, but you can use the crossbars. You can clean up the frames here. This one will work on the inside, and if you can find 3 more of them, hey, I can find 3 more of them. You've got the bright work here to put that back together. How do I find that? Because I do a lot of work on Jigmasters, and I happen to have a lot of parts, and this is just some of them. But for example, I have the side frame parts that can restore this. I also have some aftermarket parts in here. You can go buy these on an auction site, for example. That bar will fit this bar, right? And you can do a lot to dress the reel up, relatively inexpensive. If you went to buy new, you're probably going to pay about I don't know. Let's make a conservative guess here: $30 or $35 for the bright work and the handle. If you're going to buy used, you'll probably pay half that price, right? So those are the 2 quickest and easiest ways to fix greening and serious corrosion. So let's go on to some of where the work is involved. You're probably looking at this and saying, why has this guy got toilet bowl cleaner and vinegar on his workbench, right? Well, stick around, you'll find out. But let's start with putting the elbow grease on this, right? So most of the time you'll find a reel that's got a lot of corrosion on it, but it's not as serious as this. And we would start with using a scrubby pad and an automotive metal polish or some other metal polish. I like chrome polish by Turtle Wax. It's got a nice grit to it. If you put a little bit of that on your scrubby pad, take the metal parts off and clean, you can get rid of a lot of that surface junk. I like to call these coffee stains. More times than not, it's something like dried oil in that, and they do clean up. Let's say that scrubby pad didn't have enough oomph in it. You could go for a 4-0 steel wool. Use the same thing, the chrome polish on there, and again, just buff it, and that most of the time will do the trick there. Okay, so those are the two mechanical. How do I go and try and make that stuff work a little bit better, right? So now to that vinegar, you've been wondering about that one, right? So vinegar is a mild acid, and acid will help to free up some of this stuff and it'll get you started. So if you wanted to, you can take the metal parts off of this reel, put them in a container like this, blend all the parts there, cover them with the vinegar, let them sit. Sounds like our salad recipe here. Let it sit for about 6 or 7 hours so it fully works in. When you're done, come on back and do that metal polish and the steel wool, and you should be able to work some of that off, right? So what's the most drastic way to get the polish off and the least beautifully cosmetic? The answer is toilet bowl cleaner. Okay, and this just happens to be the basic dollar store toilet bowl cleaner. Got to be careful when you're working with this one, because the active ingredient in it, and the reason why it's so effective, is this hydrochloric acid, right? And interestingly enough, if you take the time to read all of that, there's only one little line here, says contains hydrochloric acid right on the bottom here. Everything else is the precautions, and you probably would look like you're going into a clean room if you followed all of them. But make sure that you have rubber gloves on. Make sure that your eyes are shielded either by personal glasses or safety goggles or the like. You might want to wear a mask if you're in tight quarters in terms of working on the vapors and that and so on. But if you do that, I will guarantee you that will get rid of every last piece of stain. How do I know that? Because I set myself up beforehand and I did it. There's a little bit of time involved here, so I wasn't going to show you, but I had another reel that is a basket case. And so here's what I do. I get a little disposable food container in the quart size, because this happens to be a quart. Take the metal parts off of this, put them in the container, put the toilet bowl cleaner on top of it, and let it sit. In this case, this has been sitting about 2 hours now, and you'll see an immediate difference. Now this is hydrochloric acid, right? So what you want to do is when you're ready to do this thing, you want to go run it and flush it with cold water right away. That'll stop the chemical reaction to it, and will get you on your way. But this happens to be a frame of a 3/0 Senator that was a basket case. It had the same greening all around on that. I'll touch this because I have that glove on. And you'll see that there is some kind of pinkish, which is took all the chrome off, all the crud off, but it's left it a little pink, okay? You're down to bare metal at that point, right? But you have clean metal parts, right? So that costs you $1. So this is the least expensive of the procedures, one of the most effective, one of the least labor intensive, because the acid is going to do all the work. But you need your precautions there. Now when you're done with that, you have a sealable container. If you thought you were going to do a lot of these, you might want to just pull all the parts, flush them off safely, and just flush the toilet bowl cleaner down the toilet bowl and let it do its intended job. If you had more that you were going to do, then you can certainly go in and put that cap back on and then work on the next one. Okay, so here is a spool of that 3/0 Senator. and you'll see it has a kind of a copper pink look to it, but there's no corrosion on this spool whatsoever. So I took it out of there ahead of time. I flushed it with cold water to stop the chemical reaction. I used my steel wool and my chrome polish, and now I've got as smooth a surface as I'm going to get, and not a pretty bright chrome, but what I do have is a metal that's free from the corrosion and can be put back on the reel. I've seen some people actually take these parts once they're cleaned and get them re-chromed. That's costly. You might as well just buy the new parts. I've seen people powder coat them in paint, the electrolysis process or the heat process, either one. What I find out with that is that paint wears, right? So I would tell you, if you're just looking for a functional reel, don't want to make a big investment, in this case $1, want to put it back together and make it work and just go use it, do this. And I would probably finish it just with a light coat of WD-40 on there, just to wipe off any of the residual and give it maybe a little bit of a protective barrier. But I wouldn't make a lot of investment in that. And I haven't figured out quite yet what I'm going to do with this. Well, I think I have. I'm going to replace all of these with the extra parts that I have. But I did want to share with you a little tip and technique. One of the ones that folks that have been repairing reels for a while, particularly the Penn Reels with a lot of corrosion and surface contamination in that, have come to know. And hopefully if you got one that maybe was your dad's reel or your childhood favorite and you'd like to put it back together for display, then let's just do that quick review. First is to buy new parts. They're available. They're a little bit expensive, but they're going to be the brightest, most costly. Second is to go to those used parts. In this case, because of the reel, we know that it's the Jig Master, and there are used parts available either on the online auction sites or through Penn Parts, or maybe you just have another reel that's similar to that broke along the way that you could use them. The third one is, let's get into the elbow grease. Let's use first the scouring pad with the chrome polish and work that hard. Second one would be let's get more aggressive. Let's use the steel wool and the chrome polish. And then when you've convinced yourself that it's no longer the best approach, just trying to use those, go to the vinegar and see if you can't soften it up that way, and go back to your steel wool. And if the vinegar doesn't work, then it's time to bring out your dollar store toilet bowl cleaner, knowing and understanding that you're going to get it cleaned. It's not going to be the prettiest, but it's going to be functional, and it's going to enable you to put the reel back on. So I hope you've enjoyed this. I hope sharing that tip with you is some new information that will be helpful to you. If you like this video, please indicate it. If you'd like to see more of this type, I'm doing a series on why these reels fail. In this case, we're talking about the corroded parts on Penn Reels. And subscribe to my channel. So this is Dennis with Second Chance Tackle. Thank you for viewing the video.